Okay, let's go ahead and get started. This conference is strictly covering April's comprehensive problem. The two comprehensive problems put together are 10% of your final grade, which is why I save the last two conferences for these 2 weeks. So this conference, like I said, is for April. April's comprehensive is actually due next week. Next week, when we have the conference on May's comprehensive, that's due during week 11. That way, students who attend the Saturday conferences are not rushing to get the project done in a day. So it gives you plenty of time to actually get the assignment done. So, and the conference, since you're the only one in here, it should not take the full hour. I had one student attend last night's conference, and that only took about a half hour. So the agenda for today, it seems rather long, but it's not that bad. A quick icebreaker, going over the purpose of the comprehensive problem, why we have students complete the problems. Quick overview of the directions. We're going to go over the chart of accounts and how important it is for these comprehensive problems. Go through a couple of transactions that are commonly missed every quarter. Go over the adjusting entries. So we'll actually go over all of the adjusting entries that you have to complete. So you will have a head start on those. The closing entries, we'll go over how many you should have, and the acronym to help us remember how the order in which we actually close the accounts. Quick overview of the financial statements, and then a quick wrap up. So it's a pretty straightforward conference. So the first question, I love this question just because it gives me an overview on how students are feeling. So far, now that we're in week 9, how do you feel about your knowledge of accounting? Do you have a firm grasp? Is is it is your grasp, you have a firm grasp, true, somewhat true, a little true, or not even close? I know you're working off a mobile device, so you should still be able to access the polls. Okay. So somewhat true. That surprisingly is what I have been getting so far from students. It's lower than usual, but the assignments are more challenging this quarter than they have been in the past. So, honest answer time. Have you actually looked ahead at the comprehensive problems? Have you looked at it? Have you glanced at it? Have you thought about it? Or have you not even done it? It is very time consuming, unfortunately. At least you've looked at the comprehensive problems. Thank you for that. A lot of students get to this point and they're like, nope, sorry, haven't looked at it, haven't thought about it, haven't had a chance. So at least you've looked at it, which is great. I usually try to start in the announcements encouraging students around week 6 to at least get a start on it. So, the purpose of the comprehensive, basically, it's going to help you tie in everything from weeks 1 through 7. It encompasses everything up to that point. It does not include any payroll, which a lot of students are grateful for. So basically, it gives you practice at starting a business from scratch with the accounting records. So your first entry is going to be recording the investment of capital. So for April, that is the very first transaction. Yeah, payroll students would love not to have as much payroll either. They have a huge 4-week project they're working on right now. So, but payroll and accounting one, it's less complicated, but still trying to include it on the comprehensive problem, not necessarily a good thing. So basically, this is going to give you, you're going to start with the journal entries, do your general ledger, do the 10-column worksheet, adjust the accounts, close the accounts. So that's basically what you're doing for April. May, you're just going to be continuing the process for the business. So it's 2 separate accounting periods that you're going to have to work through. So just remember, I am here to ask questions. Text me, email me. Calling is not usually the best method just because I live out in the country and it's cell reception can be a little iffy, but the text messages actually go through the computer and email. So I definitely get those. So these problems, they seem, if you since you've looked at them, you probably thought, oh my goodness, it's so complicated. It looks horrendous. I'm never going to get it done. It's actually not that bad. Just make sure you break everything down. Don't try to do it all in a day because that will not work. When I took this class, I tried to do everything in a day. It does not work, especially if you mislabel an account and then everything gets thrown off. Yeah, not pretty. When I took this class, I actually had my dad as my instructor, and I would wake him up in the middle of the night, ask him questions about the homework. He was not too happy with me on that one. So make sure you pace yourself and give yourself plenty of time to get it done. So directions, basically, it's nothing new. The project mainly consists of, yeah, he never called. I had him face to face and he never called on me once the entire quarter. I had my hand up the whole time, never called on me once because he did not want to show nepotism. So that was interesting. I had to come home and I would complain. Like, why didn't you call on me? So yeah, that was a rough quarter for me. So everything that we're going over for the comprehensive is essentially chapters 4 through 6. So it's just 3 chapters you have to worry about. Again, this is nothing we haven't covered. Everything has been covered at least once. Most of it has been covered more than once. So it should not be a surprise. So, general journal entries, chapters 4 through 6, the ledger, chapters 4 and 6, trial balance, chapter 6, worksheet, definitely chapter 5, adjusting entries, chapters 5 and 6, financial statements, chapter 6, and the closing entries, chapter 6. Yes, you will be able to go back over the videos later. The video for Tuesday is already posted in the conference area, as well as in the week 9 module. There is a page that says live conference recordings, and it will have all 3 of the conference recordings so you can go back and rewatch them later. So when you get stuck on a problem, or if you get stuck on the adjusting entries, you can go back and look at the videos and say, okay, this is what we said. So Yeah, they will definitely be there for you. So, the chart of accounts. In the past, on the regular homework assignments, I've been a little lax on how I grade the actual titling of accounts. For the comprehensive, I'm going to be more specific. So if you're used to just writing capital instead of the owner's name and then the word capital, or the owner's name and then the word drawing, make sure you do complete that on the comprehensive problems, because if you don't, those will be counted wrong. So I'm going to be a little more strict on how I grade the general journal. If you don't want to keep flipping back to the chart of accounts, you can always look at the general ledger, because it's going to have the specific account names as well. Excuse me. I have a sore throat this morning for some reason. Okay, so any questions so far? Okay. So again, the transactions, it's pretty much what we've been doing all quarter. So there are no surprises in the transactions. April is straightforward. May, there's a couple transactions that are worded differently, so they're a little more challenging, but pretty much there is nothing new in the comprehensive problems. And so we're going to go through a couple of transactions, ones that are commonly missed, give you some hints on how to figure out what the answer is. So I took these transactions directly from your textbook. So these are actually what you will see. So if you're going to pay rent for lodge and campground for the month of April, what accounts would we be using? Would it be lodge and accounts receivable, lodge and accounts payable, or lodge and cash? Exactly. I have had several students do accounts payable, but since the transaction does not specifically say on account, again, we're going to assume that we're dealing with cash. So that is definitely one key phrase to look for. If it does not say on account, automatically assume we're dealing with cash. So this is the first transaction that we have that actually gives us information for straight line depreciation, which you do not have to calculate for April, but you will have to calculate for May. So I always throw in straight line depreciation in April's conference as well as in the after conference assignment. So you will have to calculate straight line depreciation in the assignment. The appendix to chapter 5 goes through the depreciation, goes through the three main types that companies use. And so the first one it actually touches on is straight line. So if you forget the formula, you can always go to the appendix of chapter 5. So it's directly between chapters 5 and 6, and see how to calculate that. So for this transaction, it's like the second or third transaction you're going to deal with in April. So you purchased 10 fishing boats on account for $60,000. The boats have an estimated useful lives of 5 years, at which time they will be donated to a local day camp, and arrangements were made to pay for the boats in July. So what accounts will we be using for that? Actually, it's C, fishing boats and accounts payable. If we go back to the chart of accounts, it specifically states fishing boats. So that's what I mean by I'm going to be more strict with how you use. Yeah, exactly, which is why I say refer to the chart of accounts or to the general ledger. That way you get the exact account that you need to use. So the next one is we're purchasing food supplies for $7,000. What are we going to use for that? To be cash and food supplies expense, food supplies and accounts payable, or food supplies expense and accounts payable. Exactly. Some students have said food supplies expense, but we're only going to use the expense when we are adjusting the account at the end of the month. I equate food supplies to items like office supplies. You have the office supplies on hand, so it's an asset, just like you have the food on hand to feed the campers. So it's kind of a similarity there that kind of helps students remember how to classify this. This one we've had several times this quarter, so hopefully it's nothing new. You're paying the supermarket on account. So you're paying what you have already purchased. So would we be using cash and food supplies expense, cash and accounts receivable, or cash and accounts payable? We purchased it on account, exactly. Since we purchased it on account, we're paying off our bill. It's kind of like if we're paying off our credit card or paying off a loan or our mortgage. So it's accounts payable. Any questions on the transactions? Again, they're pretty standard from what we've been dealing with all quarter. Okay. The adjusting entries. Straight line depreciation. The formula is pretty straightforward, which I love. For the month of April, the only transaction we have that deals with depreciation is the fishing boats, but the textbook actually gives you the amount that you're depreciating for this month. So you don't actually have to calculate it for the adjusting entries for this month, but May, you will have 4, maybe 5 adjusting entries that involve you calculating straight line depreciation. So the formula is you're going to take your purchase price minus the salvage value. So how much do you think you can get for it once you're ready to get rid of it? So that would give you your book value, divide it by the useful life. That's usually for appliances, vehicles, usually around 5 years. And then that will give you your annual depreciation. But for the purpose of most accounting businesses and for the purpose of the comprehensive problems, we want the depreciation for 1 month. So you're going to have to make sure you divide the annual by 12 months. Even on your after conference assignment, make sure you give me the monthly depreciation, not the annual depreciation. If you give me the annual, sorry about that. Okay, I think she's going to be quiet. On your conference assignment, if you give me the yearly depreciation, you'll still get some credit. You just won't get all credit because I'm looking for the monthly depreciation. So here's the transaction that we're given. Ooh, she is cranky today. Sorry about that. We've had roofers in the neighborhood and she just hates the roofers for some reason. So the transaction we're given for the fishing boats. So we purchased it for 60,000. We're keeping it for 5 years. They're going to be donated, so there's no salvage value. So we would take our 60,000 divided by 5 years, which gives us $12,000 for an annual depreciation. So if 12,000 is the annual, how much would the monthly depreciation be? Exactly. I mean, granted, the book does give you this answer, but it is always helpful to know how to calculate it yourself. So that would be $1,000 a month for 10 boats. Don't forget, if you remember back to chapter 6, the book sometimes gives you the amount that is left at the end of the month. So that would be the amount that goes into the adjusted trial balance. But then it also gives you the amount to be adjusted for. So make sure that you read carefully so you can differentiate which type of amount it's giving you. A lot of students just see a dollar amount and they automatically jump to the conclusion that that's the amount we're adjusting for. So that is not always the case with our textbook. For example, office supplies remaining on hand, $100. Is that the amount left at the end of the month, or is that the amount to be adjusted for? Exactly. So that's the amount that would go into the adjusted trial balance. Same thing with this problem. Remaining on hand is 8,000, so that is the amount that's left. That's the amount we're automatically going to put into the adjusted trial balance column. So the insurance expired during the month. Is that the amount left or the amount to be adjusted for? Exactly. We've used that much insurance for the month of April. So that is the amount that we're automatically going to put into the adjustment column. Because it's expired, I relate it to kind of like if you open your fridge in the morning and you get out your milk and you see that it's expired. You really don't want to drink it, so it's gone. You don't have it anymore. Same thing with the insurance expired. We don't have that amount of insurance still. So so is there any questions on the adjusting entries this month? They're pretty much straightforward. Okay. I didn't think so, but I like to check. How many closing entries should we have? Not how many accounts are we going to deal with, but how many separate adjusting entries? 3, 4, 6, or 5. It helps to try to remember the acronym. Exactly. Some students say 3 because they usually forget about probably the drawing. So it helps to remember the acronym. If you need to, when you're doing the problems, just write the acronym down on a piece of scratch paper. If you need to, just rewatch the videos and make notes somewhere for yourself. It could be in your textbook, it could be in a notebook, on a piece of scrap paper, wherever. That way you can remember the important things that you need to know. So definitely remember the acronym because it's going to make sure you get everything adjusted and closed in the correct entry, in the correct order, excuse me. So on to the financial statements. So the financial statements are literally based on chapters 5 and 6. Definitely use pages 197 to 199, which is the demonstration problem at the end of chapter 6 before you get to the actual homework assignments. It gives you an example of the adjusting entries, the closing entries, and the financial statements. So it goes through that part of the process for you. So if you get stuck, that is one thing you can definitely refer to help you through that area. So the income statement, that is nothing new. It's the same income statement we've been doing since week 3. Yes. Old homework assignments help. Old homework assignments help. Going back to if you save the problems that I send back with comments, that's also a great thing to do. I also usually recommend students keep copies of their syllabi from their classes. That way they have access to go back and read those. Sorry about that. The dogs are going crazy today. So basically, the income statement and the statement of owner's equity, that was actually my niece's dog. So, and he's not even in the room, but he's a beagle mix. So he has the mouth of a hound. So it's actually quite funny when he starts howling. We all crack up laughing. So the income statement, statement of owner's equity, nothing new. Those are completely standard. Same thing we've been doing all quarter. So those shouldn't be that big of a deal. The main difference we have is the balance sheet. We went from the 4-column balance sheet down to this version where we have the assets divided out and then the liabilities divided out. The main thing I wanted to point out on this one is that when you list your asset, make sure you list the depreciation for that asset directly underneath it. So it's right here because in May, you're going to have multiple assets. So that depreciates. So then you're going to have to make sure you list the asset, the depreciation for that asset, the next asset, and then the depreciation for that asset. So you would just repeat the process. For this one, it's just the fishing boats. So it's not that bad. So I just wanted to point out that make sure if you're going to, when you do the balance sheet, look at the one in chapter 6 because that's the one that's going to help you get the formatting correct. Any questions on the financial statements? Okay. Okay, so we are essentially done. Just this quick wrap up. Then you can enjoy, hopefully, it's sunny wherever you are. It is absolutely gorgeous here. So, if you haven't got started on this yet, definitely get started as soon as possible. If you only have 5 or 10 minutes, the quickest thing to get started on is using the chart of accounts and the 10-column worksheet and just typing in the account names. That way, it's just one less thing you have to do later. It is due a week from tomorrow. So there is actually 2 assignments due next week. So this is the big one that's due next week. The other one isn't as bad, but you will have to download that. There's a PDF file that has the actual reading because it does not come in the textbook anymore. So that reading is online. So there is 2 due next week. If you get stuck, let me know. You're more than welcome to email me the file and ask me to look over it. Text me a question, email me a question. If you need me to double check it before you actually submit it, do not submit it. Just send it to me within an email. That way, I'll actually get to it sooner. I don't grade every day depending on my schedule. I try to, but emails are done every day. So, like I mentioned earlier, this week we're focusing on April's comprehensive. Next week we're focusing on May's comprehensive. The comprehensive for next week, the meeting for next week should take about an hour and a half. Yes, the conferences next week are the same times. So there's one, I know you teach Tuesdays and Thursdays, so there's one Friday night and again Saturday morning. So next week's conference will take about 90 minutes just because of the amount of information to go over. And once we're done, I will go ahead and email you the code for the conference assignment. That way you can go ahead and get it done. It should take 10 minutes tops to get that assignment complete. So, do you have any questions as of right now? If not, and you think of some later, go ahead and email them, text them, and I will answer them. I'll be on the computer most of the day catching up on grading. So if there are no questions, that's pretty much all I had for today.